Well, welcome back, guys, to the Musings of Matter channel. We are now at episode 11 of Inspector, the penultimate episode until the very end. And so, as we continue on with the different theories of how Steel Lady Nanase came to be, I also feel like the quality of the stories that Kodako is writing is getting higher and higher, right? It's making more and more sense. There's less and less holes within them, or even if there are holes, there's still stuff that, like 80% of it makes sense, right? So the remaining 20% is left up to the imagination, if you will. And so I already mentioned a lot of the different concepts that can be utilized in the last episode. I don't know if we're going to touch on every single one of them. Let's see, however, what she has in store for us for the very last story. All right, let's begin in 3, 2, 1, play. There's different camps now. So are you going to go on a completely different track for the last one? Alright. Impress me, Kodako. I guess probably a nice segue into the opening. And what happened there? Yep, nice segue into the opening. Is she really going to go on like a completely different path? I mean, I am intrigued. I actually also thought that she was trying to build up her case more and more until it eventually, grows into an avalanche and just simply floods everything else, right? When it becomes overwhelmingly obvious that there are some very funny circumstances in regards to Nanase's death. But okay, let's see what exactly she has come up with that's going to completely turn this on its head. Right? Literally just what we just saw, right? Although I never really quite understood like these last two scenes. Like, what's that supposed to mean with Kuro disappearing? Ooh. Oh. You're actually not trying to... What? That's what you're going with? What? This is getting kind of far-fetched. Alright. Let's see. Hmm. Hmm. Alright. And where's your, like, smoking gun? Alright, so this kind of goes into uh, allowing, allowing the others to sort of have a discussion and figure it out themselves, right? So yeah. But I feel like she still needs to convince. Yeah, you still. I mean, I like what they're doing with the entire, the other people each trying to solve it by themselves kind of thing. Okay, okay. So this just go into what I was saying earlier, right? Planting the seeds of doubt and letting people only argue over the conclusion, which means that they pretty much accept, they already accept parts of the story instead of reject the entire thing, right? Yeah. I definitely like the way she's going about this, but I'm not quite sure if the fourth solution that she gave really was enough to bring up this discussion. Oh. Do tell. Hmm.
本人が本人の亡霊を演じるのだから説得力はあったろう。
kill the detective? Oh. Oh snap. So partial truth, in a sense. uh. this fight.
ここで何をしているんですか?
Yeah, how is she going to kill him though?
一度どこかで、いや、何度も見た同じ顔を。
Why would?
七瀬カリ。
All right. Ow, what the f- Kura. Holy shit, Kura. That'd be relatively easy to do, isn't it? Be? Hmm.
これはひどい嘘だ。巻き込んだ。サイトの開設も犯人の企み。3つの解決が棄却されたのも犯人の意図。単純明快に後人七瀬を打ち消す七瀬かりんは生きていたという事実。よくここまで組み上げた。でも本物のサイト管理者である立花さんが私は七瀬かりんではないって書き込んだら、誰がそれを信じます？すでに体制は七瀬かりんが管理者であり、その方が面白いと盛り上がっています。認めようと認めまいと流れは変わりありません。岩永さんは最後の解決を信じさせる基本設定を3つの解決を使うことで浸透させた。
Yeah.
何度も決定し続けなければできなかっただろう。繰り返される死の中で怪物を滅ぼす。
Alright. I guess, it's not just her writing itself. It's also Kuro helping with choosing the different futures. I guess we can't really look at it just purely from from a just logical perspective.
では当議会に出席の皆様、採決の時となりました。後人七瀬という亡霊がいるかいないか、特別な作業はいりません。どちらを選ばれたか自動的に採決されます。ただ皆様が良心に基づき、その頭の中でご自由に願われるだけで結構です。世に深海はあれど、虚構もまた多くあり、虚構は虚構に戻れ。嘘から生まれた怪物は嘘によって。
Although you gotta feel for poor Nanase, right? Even in death, her name is gonna be tarnished even further. I guess for the greater good. Alright, see you guys after this. Alright, there we have it, the fourth solution in debunking the idea of the Steel Lady Nanase ghost, right? I gotta say, I'm more lukewarm towards this fourth theory than I was towards the second and third ones, and there's a lot of reasons for this, right? One thing that particularly stands out to me is in the anime here, in this episode, they instantly show like the change of the wave of opinion of the various Anonymous posters. They're like, oh yeah, if it's possible that she is actually, she is actually just Nanase in the flesh, right? Now, the thing about this though is that it's really it's a very risky sort of move, right? Because for the first time in all the different solutions, this is the first time where they actually the culprit was instead pinned to be someone who the public relatively knows about, right? It's someone who the public, the masses, they can pin a name and a face towards. They can do some research in regards to this, and it's easier to imagine. It's easier to drive imaginations on someone who is a completely blank, right? You never seen this new person, this new culprit or criminal, and you have no idea where to exactly look from or for. However, now that they are actually taking the real Nanase into the equation, that I feel like that is a recipe for disaster, and it's gonna drive a lot of people to deep dive into her story, into how she was and whatnot, and then really asking themselves, can a former idol really be able to pull off something as elaborate and as large scale as this, and even kill two people in the process, right? And that is the big question. In the episode, they sort of like just just completely went over this. But I feel like in reality, if this was a case and someone was trying to present a case of this, it would probably be met with a lot more skepticism. Not to mention, by using Nanase's name, you're instantly also having some other issues, such as, for instance, she's got to have some fans, right? Some people who liked her. People are gonna be like, hey, don't insult Nanase's name by saying that, by thinking of such a ludicrous kind of plot, right? Because in essence, this is sort of blaming the victim in a roundabout sort of way. Basically, like, she was supposed to be this tragic character, and now instead you're saying that she is the one who is behind all this, right? From someone who was supposed to be mourned and respected into someone who is supposed to be shunned. So obviously people are going to take offense at that as well, and come on, they don't even really need to be her fan or whatnot. In all kinds of online communities, you will find white knights, right? And in this case, it might not necessarily be a bad thing, because you are dragging someone's name through the mud with no proof whatsoever, right? And that includes, talking about no proof whatsoever, that includes the sort of like final move that you made, which is attacking the admin, attacking Rika, basically, thinking that, accusing her of actually being Nanase. So again, it runs into the same problem that I was just saying before, where, you're not going to be able to say to someone, no, you're guilty, prove your innocence, right? It should be the opposite. You don't have any sort of concrete evidence. It doesn't even need to be concrete. You don't have any sort of like any kind of suspicion or any kind of even very trivial evidence that tries to point and leads to some coincidences as to why people should start suspecting the admin here, right? So I don't know. I could just totally easily see this going in a sort of direction where instead a lot of the anonymous posters are like, hey, the admin has been doing a great job. Whoever the admin is, they've been providing this site for free, taking their time to give us so much information and organizing so much information. Who are you to just come out of nowhere and accuse this admin of being a bad person, of being the criminal, right? So you could easily see the conversation going that way as well, which, they never really got into throughout this episode. So I'm not as convinced by the conclusions drawn or the sort of aftermath that we've been shown when this final solution was presented. And not to mention, even going back from a motive standpoint, like, what motive does Nanase have to do something like this? It's not like she really killed someone and is trying to run away from this crime, starting a life anew or something, right? Although I guess that could be worked into the theory as well. Maybe she really did kill her father, and now she's trying to live a new life, right? That is one sort of interpretation that you can go with. But if you're just, like, think about it. If you're just trying to start life anew, once you stop being an idol, once you stop being a public figure, the paparazzi are not going to be around you anymore, right? They would have no intention of coming towards you because you're not someone important, right? And yet, if you are doing this entire changing one's identity kind of thing, how exactly are you going to become an idol again, right? There's just too much risk associated with that. So, in the end, what does that actually change? Is my question, when she could have easily just wrote this out and just decided not to be an idol anymore, which has the exact same kind of consequences as her taking on a new identity, except without the actual act of being a criminal, right? So even from the motive perspective, I'm not entirely sold on that as well. Now, with that being said, I did like how it utilizes some elements which I've been talking about through the past few episodes, right? So number one, she's building this case based on previous solutions. So by providing all those previous solutions and different elements that are strewn without them, she's allowing the public to sort of pick up on all those different pieces and try to fit the puzzle by themselves, right? So providing this sort of ammunition. Now, I would have liked them to actually show her providing more evidence in all for all these different elements. I feel like that would definitely allow people to try and pick up these elements and utilize them a bit more. But at the very least, the concept of it, I do agree with, right? Providing a lot of these, you provide the Lego pieces and then allow them to build it themselves, right? That's essentially what this is, and which again goes to my second point about this, which I also talked about in previous episodes, and that is it's allowing people to discuss and try and come up with theories by themselves. The solutions that Kodako provides don't necessarily have to be 100% perfect, right? As long as there is plausible doubt, planting a seed of doubt within people's mind, people, especially those who are looking at this in the first place, they definitely are nosy people and whatnot, right? So allowing them to actually have their own sort of interpretation on these different events, ultimately it's still going to serve their purpose, right? So I did like how she went with this route as well. And this also ties in with why in the end I think that this still works, even though I have some issues with how the solutions were provided and the exact contents of the solutions, right? So the reason for this is we gotta understand that the only thing that Kodako is trying to accomplish here is plant seeds of doubt into people's minds that it's not an actual ghost. Now, those who were never convinced that it was a ghost in the first place, she doesn't even need to convince them, right? There's probably some people out there who are also convinced that this is this is an artificial ghost and somebody is dressing up as Nanase and doing all these different things because of different agendas or whatnot. Kodako doesn't need to persuade them. She only needs to persuade those who actually believe a ghost exists in the first place, right? So as long as sufficient doubt is casted, even if the solutions are not 100% perfect, in fact there might be a lot of holes within them, as long as people start to shift their thinking towards, hey, this Nanase is actually being impersonated by some real person, whoever that is, that in itself is enough to accomplish her purpose, right? And of course, the second most important thing, and I guess might be even more critical and crucial than everything else that I've said, is the fact that Kuro is helping her, right? So they actually mentioned this a little bit in the episode as well, and that is the entire reason why there's so low resistance to Kodako's theories and whatnot is because Kuro is choosing each future that provides the amount of least resistance as well. So that sort of alleviates a lot of the acceptance problem that I was talking about, right? So and I guess that ties in with this still at the core being a supernatural series, right? It's not just a case of you can logically think yourself through. You still need to rely on some supernatural stuff to get the job done. So that is why in the end I still feel like, okay, it's still reasonable that the public's mind would be changed through providing these for differing solutions here. But yeah, there we go for this episode of Inspector. In the next one, I don't know, are they going to sort of have a confrontation with Rika, or maybe we're just gonna see the aftermath of things, so on and so forth. Yeah, it's definitely, the next episode should be a wrap-up episode all through and through, and well, let's just see how it's gonna turn out once it gets here, right? So, hope you guys enjoyed this one. Feel free to leave comments below as to your own sort of deconstruction of Kodako's methods and her solutions. And yeah, I'll see you guys next week as well. Until then, bye-bye.